Hey, Mike Gillette here. We are in the car in the desert, hence the magnificent sunshine. We're currently positioned east of Las Vegas and west of St. George, Utah. And I'm talking today about courage. The reason I'm talking about courage is I'm thinking about courage. And I'm thinking about courage because I'm on my way to a gymnastics club to work with a group of athletes there. And if you boil everything down that I teach, whether we're talking about mental toughness or focus or concentration or managing emotions or dealing with perfectionism, performance anxiety, and on and on and on, all of those individual symptoms are actually quite effectively addressed through the application and the cultivation of courage. Courage is, of course, contextual. Courage in an athletic setting is much different than personal courage, having to do the right thing under difficult circumstances, or courage on the battlefield. But courage is how I choose to define what it is that I teach ultimately. And when you're talking about athletics, coaches, athletes, frequently say, "Oh yeah, courage, you mean confidence?" And I don't. And they say, "Well, why not? What's the difference?" And because in their minds, in most people's minds, really, there's no difference. It's just they're kind of synonymous with one another. Courage, confidence, same, right? And I beg to differ. I think not only are they different, but there's an important distinction as to why they're different. Confidence is a feeling, and it's defined as such. And when you have those moments of confidence, those are great moments. But for most people, those are difficult to predict, difficult to try to exert any sort of influence or control over those. So those feelings kind of become magic moments. When they're here, that's a wonderful time, and we can appreciate that. But what if it's time to compete and you do not feel confident? You don't have the option of not competing just because you don't feel a certain way. The competition is still there. It is a task for you to accomplish. So if you focus on trying to feel confident, I think you're ultimately going to do yourself a disservice, because in those numerous moments when confidence is not present, you're going to feel as though you're lacking something that is critical for success. And it's not critical for success. One of my truisms is, you can be terrified and still be amazing. And I absolutely believe that. And if you can liberate yourself from being dependent on this thing that we call confidence, then you can start on your journey towards developing courage. And courage is different than confidence, because courage is not a feeling. Courage is choice. Courage is action, particularly action in moments where it's difficult to display courage. If you think about any scenario where a soldier has been awarded a medal for bravery on the battlefield, there was probably no time that that soldier ever felt confident. Yeah, I got this. I'll be fine. I'm going to say it was probably quite the opposite. They were probably terrified, and yet they still managed to act. They managed to do. They chose the best decision, and then they executed that decision. And ultimately, that may have been one of the best examples of that person in their entire life, because of the action they took, despite all of the external reasons why it would have been very hard to do those things. That's why we recognize people like that. Men and women who do brave things in battle, are worthy of our esteem, because it is so very difficult. But the interesting thing about battle is people aren't really trying to tell soldiers, hey, just, cultivate confidence so that you feel good about, the life and death decisions that you'll be making on a regular basis. No, the way that soldiers are prepared is more akin to how I believe athletes should be prepared. You have have to prepare for the battlefield that's relevant to you. Again, you know, courage is contextual. How the meat will unfold, you know, there's going to be uncertainty. There's going to be things you cannot control. You simply have to be willing to execute in those moments. That's how you distinguish yourself. That's how you deliver, you know, amazing moments. You know, that's how you fulfill your athletic destiny. It's by courage. It's the willingness to do, particularly when you're scared. And does sports provide opportunities for athletes to feel fear? Yes, absolutely. If for no other reason, because this means something to you. There is inherent value in this sport, in cultivating excellence within this sport. That's a big deal. And in the case of the athletes I'll be speaking to in a few minutes, fear is also a very real thing because it's a dangerous sport. Gymnastics, statistically, is the most dangerous sport, competitively speaking. There are a lot of things that they do that border on, you know, physically impossible. Very few people can perform in that sport. It's not a democratic sport. It's very selective. There's a lot of physical attributes you need, but prime among them is this emotional quality called courage, because so much of what they do is counterintuitive. It's just scary. You know, going backwards over and over, way up in the air, that's frightening. Most people would never even think to do that, much less do that in a competitive context and introduce layers of complexity to it. What I try to do with athletes as well as others is what I encourage you to do, is don't look for the things that make you feel comfortable. And that's not, you know, a cliche observation of get comfortable with being uncomfortable, although it's still true. It's, if you really want to develop yourself, you have to lean into things that are scary. Don't gravitate towards the pleasant. Don't gravitate towards the things that you know you do well. You know, test yourself, push yourself, explore the fringes. Be willing to do that. That's how you display courage. That's how you find out what you're really made of. That's how you do things that are worthy of respect, both your own and the respect of others.